Hi there, Dr. Dorothy with my Fireside Chats. This is Fireside Chat number 4. When I left you last week, I was telling you about how I met my husband in high school. He wanted to be an Army Ranger. I didn't want to be an Army wife. And then we ended up in the same class, in summer school class. That's a good story in and of itself. If you didn't see Fireside Chat 3, I recommend you see that first. And then come back. But we began to date from that first encounter. And in this one, I guess I would say delayed expectations could be the name of this story. Because we really connected. And we had a lot of fun together. And I still thought he was adorable, just like I did back in high school. So we dated that summer, and he went back to A&M, and I continued my education there at the community college and was going to be in my second year. So Frank goes back to A&M, and we wrote to each other. I would go to activities at the university, and he would come home on weekends, and so it got really serious. Well, by that second year, we began to plan that we wanted to get married. He convinced me that I did want to be a military wife, and I began to make plans for a wedding. So by May, we were going to get married August 27th, 1966. The plans were in place. He gave me my ring in March, and we were making the wedding plans for August. And in May, I went through my graduation ceremony, and the dean laid that associate degree in my hand. And where he wanted to be an Army Ranger, I wanted to be a teacher. I was training to be an elementary teacher. That was my core study. And I loved to teach kids. And so when I went through the ceremony that night, totally unexpectedly, when I got that degree in my hand, the plan is that we couldn't really afford for me to not work and help him finish at A&M. And then, the idea was I would go back to school. But that night, I just had this epiphany. What if I would get pregnant and never get to go back to school, and therefore never be a teacher of children? And so I had the bright idea that I would suggest to Frank that we delay the wedding. Never realizing that his whole goal, his reason for going to A&M was to enter the military as a lieutenant. And he didn't understand that desire, that burning desire. He understood it for being an Army Ranger, but he didn't understand it for being an educator. And he didn't understand why I was delaying the wedding. And so he began to push back on that. He wanted to go on and get married, and I could go back to school. He would support that. But I wanted to go on and go off to school and have my degree when we married. So I continued to get more and more upset with him when he didn't understand where I was really coming from. I had no intention of breaking this engagement. It was actually a family diamond that's in my ring that I wear now that he'd had set for me for my engagement ring. And we just began to kind of get at loggerheads. And he wanted to blame my parents. He thought that they had, behind the scenes, convinced me that I should delay the wedding and get my degree. And it really wasn't them, it was me. So as we began to not understand each other and have conflict with each other, I needed my combat boots. If you join my email series, you'll see that when I write about relationships in chapter 2 of my 7 Steps book, I have combat boots for relationships because sometimes they're necessary to get through the hard times. And there are hard times, even in a great relationship. So I finally, by July, and we were to get married in August and everything. I had my dress, had my ring, I had the plans for the wedding to take place. And by July, we were enough at differences on whether or not to move forward until I gave him back his engagement ring, broke that engagement, and broke his heart. I mean, it really took him by surprise. He didn't understand. He says to this day that I threw him under the bus. But that was not the case. I wanted to be a teacher. And he didn't figure the whole story out. It was really funny because it was just a few years ago. So after 40 plus years of marriage, basically 50 years of marriage, he finally figured out that it really wasn't my intent to break this engagement, that my intent had been to get my education. And I wanted that secured before I became a wife and mother. So the lesson there is to, when you know what your purpose is, you know what you were born to do, then you need to not let anything stand in your way. You need to make your own decisions. You need to make hard decisions. You need to strap on your combat boots, and with a caring and loving attitude, you need to stand your ground and know that this is what you're supposed to do at the time, and become all that you can be. And that's part of my message for military wives in particular is, you remember the commercial for being in the Army, be all you can be? Well, my message to military wives is be all you can be, but not years later and decades later, like when I really began to look back and evaluate my experience. Do it now. You matter. And you becoming all you can be matters. And so the message here is hold the line and make the right decisions, even if they're hard decisions. And in the end, things will come around as they should. They play out as they should. And you don't always understand that when you're in your 20s or even your 30s. Some people not in their 40s. But I have the rest of the story will unfold for you in the next couple of videos, and I will share with you how that played out in our case to be true. And I'm certain of the same sort of outcomes for you. So thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week for the next part of the story. It's a really great love story, but there's some real hard times that come in there in the interim, in between. Cheers. Salute.